I mean, I just feel like anybody would understand at this point. Like, I'll retire the heavyweight belt if I have to.
That's exactly what happened. The UFC's entire heavyweight division walked out. Jon Jones is gone, Stipe is ghosting, and Dana White is losing his mind behind the scenes. But the real twist: Max Holloway is leaking emails, memos, even a recorded call that could blow up the UFC. Can Dana survive this? I've got the full gist. The heavyweights walked out. This time, the fighters aren't just talking about it, they're publicly revolting, walking off main cards, rejecting fights, and one of them even threw down his gloves mid-match and quit on live TV. And the most shocking part, Dana White doesn't seem worried at all. In fact, he's mocking the entire situation.
You don't like the way we pay our fighters? Too fucking bad. Go start another MMA organization.
But here's where the script flips. These aren't just disgruntled mid-tier fighters anymore. We're talking champions, contenders, veterans, and rising stars all fed up. One after another, they're turning their backs on the organization they once bled for. Let's start with the loudest voice in the room, Jon Jones. The man many consider the greatest MMA fighter of all time, who just publicly gave up the heavyweight title.
I mean, I just feel like anybody would understand at this point. Like, I'll retire the heavyweight belt if I have to.
And just like that, the top of the division crumbled. Jones went on to say bluntly that he's no longer motivated by titles. He's not chasing belts.
I don't really care about it.
That wasn't just resignation. That was a rejection of the entire system. What system? The one Dana White defends with every fiber of his being, the business model that has fighters eating what they kill.
We built a business model where they share. If you're the champion, you share in the pay-per-view revenue. You eat what you kill.
But here's the catch. While the UFC makes billions, its fighters, including the most physically brutalized ones like heavyweights, are being paid a fraction of what pro athletes in similar sports earn. Jake Paul, of all people, pointed this out.
The UFC only pays its fighters like 10% of its income, whereas like in the NBA and NFL, the athletes get paid 50%.
10%. While the average NFL player can retire rich after 3 seasons, UFC heavyweights are left with broken bones, CTE risks, and barely enough money to cover physical therapy. And what's Dana's response? Defiance, arrogance, and a strange obsession with comparing himself to the NFL.
Like the NFL. You remember the USFL? They tried to compete against the NFL.
100%.
He says he's changed lives, but at what cost? Behind closed doors, his fighters are literally breaking down emotionally and physically. Take this horrifying mid-fight exchange, where a fighter known for his toughness quits in the middle of a bout. "I don't have it. You champion shot it. I don't have it." That was the sound of a man broken not just by a single opponent, but by a system that's burned him out. While some fighters quietly quit, others are shouting at the top of their lungs, calling out Dana White directly for snubs, pay cuts, and pure disrespect. Max Holloway, for example, put on a fight of their performance only to get robbed of his bonus by Dana himself.
Hope you guys gave Dana. How the hell did we not get fight of the night, bro? What is he thinking?
Max isn't even a heavyweight, but that's the point. The discontent is organization-wide, and the heavyweights have had it the worst. When Tom Aspinall, the new kid on the block, was asked what's next for him, even he sounded uncertain. Dana's silence on the division's future is deafening. Fighters are quitting, stalling, walking, and some are even confronting Dana directly. Fans are noticing too. Hashtags like #PayFightersFairly and #UFC's Exodus are gaining steam. Even casual fans are asking, where the hell are all the heavyweights? They're done being silent, done being broken, done being underpaid. And if Dana White doesn't address this and keeps shrugging off criticism with lines like,
"Why do you think the UFC gets so much flack for not paying their fighters?"
Because I don't tell anybody what they get paid.
then this isn't just a PR crisis, it's the beginning of the UFC's heaviest collapse ever. When your champion lays down his belt, your fighters walk away, and your business model starts cracking. How long before it all falls apart? Let's not downplay this. We're talking about the most iconic division in the fight game, the gladiators, the knockout kings. The reason millions tune in, and they're done being pawns on Dana White's billion-dollar chessboard. How did it get this bad? It began quietly. A comment here, a walkout there. At first, people didn't want to believe the UFC's this unstoppable money-printing machine could be bleeding from within. But when multiple top-tier heavyweights either refused to fight, retired early, or left to box, it became too obvious to ignore. The most public defector, Francis Ngannou, the former undisputed heavyweight champion, walked away at the peak of his career. Why? Dana White refused to pay him what he believed he was worth. Ngannou asked for one thing: fair compensation and the freedom to pursue boxing. Instead, Dana stripped him of his title and publicly declared him free to go. Ngannou then got paid millions in his debut boxing match with Tyson Fury, more than he ever earned across his entire UFC run. That moment sent a signal to the rest of the division. There is life after Dana White, and it pays better. It also proved something else. The UFC doesn't hold all the power anymore. Dana tried to downplay it, calling boxing a going out of business sale and mocking promoters. He tries to paint the UFC as a noble, reinvesting enterprise. But what's really happening is more sinister. Fighters are being nickel and dimed into silence, or at least they used to be. Back to John Jones, the UFC poster boy. He had finally moved to heavyweight, and fans were salivating at legacy fights. But then Jones said, "My bio doesn't lie in belts anymore. I've created something much bigger." And just like that, poof, Jones walked away, just like two heavyweight legends, sick of being Dana's cash cows. Then the unthinkable happened. A current fighter was caught mid-fight questioning whether he could go on, not because he was losing, but because he was done. That's not cardio, that's mental burnout. That's the cost of Dana's. If you don't like it, leave philosophy. And if you're thinking, they still get bonuses, right? Not always. Ask Max Holloway, who put on one of the most electrifying fights in UFC history, only to get zero bonus love from Dana White. This isn't a one-off, it's a pattern, a culture, and more fighters are breaking their silence. Talk to them privately, and they'll tell you the same thing. The UFC's pay model is fundamentally broken. Many are stuck in restrictive contracts that prevent them from speaking up, boxing elsewhere, or even revealing how much they make. Dana White himself boasted about it. Why? Because if fans knew the real numbers, they'd riot. Jake Paul, love him or hate him, said out loud what many UFC fighters are afraid to admit.
You're paying these fighters a minimum of $12,000 for a fight. They're risking their lives.
In what world does a professional athlete on the biggest stage in combat sports earn less than a Walmart manager? It's not just unsustainable, it's inhumane. And now it's reaching a boiling point. When multiple heavyweight stars start quitting, retiring early, or refusing to fight. When your top champion says the belt means nothing. When your up-and-coming stars are uncertain about the future, that's not bad luck. That's bad leadership. And Dana White can rant all he wants about how other organizations failed.
If you don't like what I'm doing, you don't like the way I'm doing it, go out and raise some money. I did. And start your own.
But what happens when his own fighters push back? That's exactly where this is headed. We're talking about a looming exodus of heavyweights, and the UFC has no one to blame but itself. When you squeeze the toughest men in the world into a corner, bleeding them dry for PPV, buys and Instagram clips, they eventually fight back. And this time, they're fighting with their feet. They're walking out. They're quitting. And they're taking the division with them. This isn't rumor anymore. It's not whispers in locker rooms or vague tweets. Screenshots, voice messages, DMS, secret backroom meetings all point to one conclusion. The fighters are done. Done with Dana White's grip on their paychecks. Done with the illusion of opportunity. Done with being the most dangerous men on the planet and somehow the most underpaid, behind the UFC's glamour. A different kind of fight is happening, and this one's for survival, according to an internal source, who requested anonymity. A group of heavyweight fighters, including 2 former interim champions, 1 current title, and 3 top 10 contenders, began sharing pay breakdowns privately via encrypted messaging apps in early 2024. Why encrypted? Because talking about UFC pay publicly can get you blacklisted. Dana White made that very clear.
You don't like the way we pay our fighters? Too fucking bad. Go start another MMA organization.
That's not leadership. That's a threat, and the fighters know it. They started comparing real paychecks, bonus records, and sponsorship losses tied to UFC's exclusive deals with partners like Venno. What they discovered were wild inconsistencies. Fighter A, $300K for a PPV main event with $800K buys. Fighter B, $1,160,000 for a co-main with 1.2M buys. Fighter C promised $1,100,000 bonus, got $1,150, a final straw. A leaked internal memo, circulated accidentally to a fighter manager, showing some bonuses were withheld based on public loyalty to UFC leadership. Speak up, and your bonus disappears. Veterans quietly fumed, while rising star Tom Aspinall watched closely. Known for his calm demeanor, he sounded uncertain when asked about his future in the heavyweight division. Screenshots from a group chat named Cage Kings reveal the unrest. Members include 2 main event fighters and at least 1 former champion. Fighter 1. How the underscore are we risking brain damage and getting paid 1/20th of what Jake Paul makes? Fighter 2. My win bonus was less than my hotel bill in Abu Dhabi. Fighter 3. You're all ready to bounce after the next event. I talked to my lawyer. Fighter 4. Dana will blacklist us all. No more PPV, no more monster deals. Fighter 1. That's why we all have to do it. If one walks, we're dead. If we all walk, they can't hold us. Fighter 5. Let's crash. Next main card, walk together. The alleged date. UFC 37 journalists, analysts, and fighters outside the UFC are watching closely. Sponsorships also reveal coercion. Since UFC partnered with Venom, fighters can't secure their own cage sponsors. One supplement brand offered a 6-figure deal to a UFC heavyweight, but within days, a UFC official warned that continuing the partnership could jeopardize the fighter's standing. This is corporate coercion, not just suppression. Dana White has made a career of appearing bulletproof, but lately, his tone has sharpened. He refuses to share numbers.
You get some of these guys that you can walk in and say, I want $30 million. Okay? Based on what?
He mocks their demands.
Oscar De La Hoya is a two-faced, lying nut job.
He attacks critics rather than addressing the message. But here's the truth. When champions don't care about belts, when fighters plot walkouts, and when other sports poach top talent with better money and freedom, your empire isn't as bulletproof as you think. The most dangerous part, it's not the walkout itself. It's that Dana White is losing the fear factor for the first time. His reign has been built on power, intimidation, and controlling the narrative. Fighters who played nice were rewarded. Those who stepped out of line were punished or erased. But now, fighters aren't scared anymore, and Dana knows it. It's no longer just about money, it's about control. Dana has long played fighters against one another. Divide and conquer, ask for a raise, and he offers your fight to someone else. Refuse, and he finds someone who says yes. This worked for decades because the UFC isn't unionized and contracts are restrictive. But the heavyweight mutiny is breaking that tactic. The division is moving as a team, and when a former champion like Jon Jones publicly revolts, it's a seismic shift.
Give the guy what he wants. I don't want to fight dangerous up-and-comers anymore.
This isn't just a scheduling issue. It's a veiled endorsement of the revolt. Jones is done fighting for Dana's bottom line. He wants fights on his terms or not at all. Meanwhile, Max Holloway broke the unwritten rule of never calling out the UFC publicly. After UFC 300, Max looked into the camera and voiced what everyone was thinking. He wasn't subtle. He wasn't sure. While not a heavyweight, his outburst emboldened others. Suddenly, heavyweights who had kept their heads down started texting and calling. According to our insider, a top 5 ranked fighter sent a message to the Cage Kings chat hours after Max's press conference. If Max can say it publicly, we can say it on the scales. And by scales they meant UFC 307 Wyenza subtle public protest, skipped presses, cryptic messages, and statements like, "I'm not fighting for scraps" dropped casually to reporters. Inside UFC headquarters, panic is rising. Dana pinned his hopes on Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic to stabilize the division. Two legends, one last dancer, guaranteed draw. But neither man wants the fight. Stipe, sources say, is refusing not out of fear, but because of money. He knows his name will sell the card, but Dana won't pay fairly. He reportedly told his team, "I'm not getting played on my last fight. If they want fireworks, they better bring the truck." Dana tried leaking rumors that the fight was still under negotiation, but fans noticed the silence. No graphics, no press buzz, no date. Publicly, the UFC pretends all is fine. Privately, they're begging legends to bail them out. When ESPN, BT Sport, and other broadcasters caught wind of a potential heavyweight walkout, things escalated. Multi-million-dollar contracts rely on top fighters showing up. If they don't, lawsuits could follow. One unverified internal memo allegedly warned UFC legal teams that absent stars could trigger breach of contract claims. Dana isn't just fighting athletes anymore, he's fighting contracts that hold the organization together. Where are we today? Jon Jones, out, belt vacated, fights only on his terms. Francis Ngannou gone, paid pursuing boxing. Tom Aspinall, publicly vague, privately aligned with the walkout Stipe Miocic, refusing Dana's offer until the money is right. Multiple top 10 heavyweights rumored holding out or plotting exits. Sponsors warned, threatened, some quietly backing out. And Dana still insisting everything is fine.
There's no gag order in place. These fighters can come out and say exactly what they make.
But the fighters aren't silenced by contracts, they're silenced by fear. And now, for the first time, that fear is fading. The UFC's empire is cracking. This is it. The moment Dana White tried so hard to prevent has finally arrived. Let's start with something you were never meant to know existed. Insiders close to the UFC's promotional team have quietly confirmed the existence of what's being referred to internally as the Blacklist File, an unofficial collection of fighters, agents, sponsors, and even influencers who have voiced public support for the pay revolt. According to sources, the document includes fighters who posted pro-union messages, athletes who liked Jake Paul's anti-UFC posts, sponsors who didn't renew under the Venom exclusivity deal, and YouTubers or MMA analysts who gave airtime to whistleblowers. Those listed were excluded from major card slots, removed from UFC promotional material, and denied post-fight bonuses regardless of performance. This isn't speculation, it's retaliation. Dana White doesn't back down, he strikes back. But here's the issue, fighters are now walking away, and the blacklisting strategy has backfired. Even Dana's most loyal allies are starting to question their positions. Inside ESPN headquarters, panic is rising, because the UFC's biggest broadcast deals depend on guaranteed viewership metrics. And nothing attracts more attention than heavyweight title fights. With Jon Jones gone, Stipe Miocic silent, and Tom Aspinall rumored to be stalling negotiations, there's no undisputed champion willing to fight. Let that sink in. There is no real heavyweight division right now. It's not injured, not inactive, it's boycotting the system. Broadcasters understand the stakes. When they signed those massive multi-year contracts, they were promised a set number of title fights, PPV buys, and star power for major events. But now, the projections are in freefall. Analysts are quietly adjusting Q4 expectations. And one source at BT Sport revealed that discussions about performance-based penalty clauses have already begun. That means if the UFC fails to deliver promised fights, they could lose millions. So what's Dana's plan to stop the bleeding? Create a distraction. Reports confirm that Dana White and his executive team began secret negotiations in July for a desperate super fight designed to grab headlines, restore control, and buy time. The proposed fight, Sean O'Malley versus Conor McGregor at catchweight in Saudi Arabia. It's the flashiest matchup possible. No belts, no rankings. Just two of the UFC's loudest stars in a high-stakes, high-money spectacle. But here's the catch, it's not booked. McGregor has refused to commit, and O'Malley has allegedly demanded a renegotiation bigger than John Jones if he's expected to carry the UFC's crisis on his back. Dana's reported response: you either save the company or you're part of the problem. It's not a strategy, it's a Hail Mary, and fighters know it. You'd expect the revolt to come from veterans like Jones, Miocic, or Ngannou, but that's no longer the case. Even rising prospects are disillusioned. When fighters give everything and get nothing, it sends a message: loyalty doesn't pay, and silence isn't rewarded. Now, the new generation, barely cracking the top 10, are already planning exits. Multiple fighters have reportedly reached out to PFL Bellator pre-acquisition and international leagues like One Championship, searching for loopholes in their UFC contracts. This isn't a walkout, it's an exodus in slow motion. For years, UFC fans have balanced loving the sport and tolerating Dana White, but that tolerance is fading. On social media, hashtags like #PayYourFighters, #Dana, and #UFC Union now are trending. Even casual fans who never cared about behind-the-scenes drama are realizing the Octagon may be soaked in more than sweat, it's blood and business. The real fight is in the boardroom now, and Dana's usual corporate tactics aren't landing. Because when Jake Paul, of all people, starts sounding more reasonable than the UFC president, fans begin questioning their loyalty. It's messy, it's cringeworthy, but it's true. So let's pull back the curtain and ask, what if Dana White has already lost? Not officially, not publicly, but in the hearts and minds of his fighters. Has the spell finally broken? What happens when the biggest men in your sport are no longer afraid of you? They're not quitting the fight, they're quitting the system. And unless Dana rebuilds trust, pays fairly, and treats his fighters like human beings instead of numbers, the UFC's heavyweight division may never recover. And if the heavyweights go, who's next? Once, the heavyweight division was the UFC's crown jewel. Legends like Randy Couture, Cain Velasquez, Brock Lesnar, and Daniel Cormier carried that banner. Now, the belt sits in limbo. Jones doesn't want it. Miocic won't fight for it. Aspinall won't commit. And according to a leaked report from a senior matchmaker, at least 4 top 15 heavyweights are refusing to sign new bout agreements until pay terms are renegotiated. They're calling this stance minimum viable dignity. Yes, that's the actual phrase circulating in management emails. One leaked email read, "We can't force them to fight, and we can't legally compel them to accept new contracts under the same terms." If this spreads to other divisions, we're offended. That's not internet gossip, it's from UFC operations. The thread is now internal. In response, the UFC has tried to fast-track lesser-known heavyweights to fill the gaps, hoping to keep the schedule intact without exposing the scale of the revolt, but fans aren't buying it. And neither are networks. A recent ESPN card featured a main event between 2 unranked heavyweights, and the backlash was brutal. Pay-per-view sales barely reached 180,000, a disaster by UFC standards. On Reddit and X, formerly Twitter, fans joked, "This isn't UFC, it's Dana White's Contender Series with better lighting. Bring back the real fights or give us our money back. Where's John? Where's Tom? Where's the fight I paid for?" The illusion of dominance is shattered. Every time Dana insists everything's fine, the numbers prove otherwise. It's now confirmed that at least 2 law firms have been hired by the UFC not to defend, but to review the legality of fighter contracts. Why? Because if multiple fighters walk out in coordination, it could be considered a labor protest, opening a new legal war. Worse, if those contracts are ruled overly restrictive or exploitative, lawsuits could expose true financials, bonus manipulation, sponsorship suppression, and silencing tactics, and the fighters know it. Several top heavyweights have already hired independent legal counsel. According to ESPN's legal analyst Mark Reg, one fighter's attorney said, "We're exploring whether these contracts violate California labor law, and if they do, we're ready to escalate." Translation: Dana's empire is under legal siege. There was one small moment caught on camera that said it all. After John Jones' final public statement about vacating the belt, the camera lingered just long enough to show it relief. Not anger, not stress, freedom. For the first time in years, John Jones looked unburdened by the machine. That's not retirement, that's rejection. When fighters feel truly free, no amount of bonuses or title shots can buy them back, because they've already won the fight that matters. Let's be honest, if this revolt holds, the heavyweight division could collapse. Dana White might be forced to renegotiate contracts across all divisions. The UFC could lose major broadcast deals. And a fighter union once mocked could finally emerge. Combat sports history would split into two eras, before the walkout and after it. So what's Dana's next move? He could negotiate, he could concede, he could try to buy loyalty one fighter at a time. But unless he changes how the UFC does business, this isn't just a PR disaster, it's an existential crisis. Because when your biggest stars are willing to risk their careers, their money, and their fame, maybe the belt was never the real prize. Maybe, for the first time ever, freedom is. If you found this story shocking and unbelievable, make sure to check out other amazing videos on the screen. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.